There's no fucking way you're gonna be saying that you like the modern Rolex outer box the same that you like the vintage Rolex outer box. No way, dude. My mom's on the camera today. It's gonna be a little bit maybe shakier than it's usually. The start of our videos with this watch, the wooden dial vintage 80s Rolex President Day Date. Alright, so today we have a very special, rare, vintage Rolex unboxing to do today that's coming across the desk. I should have known Sean packed another box underneath the other box. I don't know why, and then we've got a box underneath that. I'm not sure why he said, oh man, don't use it, don't put a knife to it. We got the outer box right there. Underneath another box and packing peanut bubble wrap. What is it, more packing? Yes, sir. Now we're getting into the actual box. Well, not really, actually. Now you can slowly start seeing the vintage Rolex box. We're gonna be traveling across the twirly, swirly gumdrops and the land of the candy cane forest to deliver this baby. We're doing a holiday unboxing for a rare vintage 80s Rolex with a really cool factory dial that Rolex did back in the day. The specifications of the original box and outer box, inner box that it came with, I haven't seen specifically for this specification of it before, so it's gonna be interesting to see and check out. All right, so I'm pretty jazzed to have a particular watch in today, and we're gonna be actually delivering it tomorrow. I'm actually pretty excited to have this piece in hand right now because I think it brings up a pretty interesting conversation that we can have about some pretty cool watches. This is going to be interesting dials, rare dials, vintage dials, textured dials, stone dials, dials that tell a story, that have something interesting, rare, and unique going on. They were having a field day with just the amount of creativity that you can have with textures and colors and everything on the dial of a watch. They do that a little bit these days in the modern area with the turquoise dials. I think they made another coral dial. They do a lot of the meteorite dials. The higher end modern Rolexes, but they're not having as much fun as they used to have. They used to have a shit ton of fun. They used to not give a shit. They released like 4 or 5 different types of the wood dials. Are you kidding me? They would never do that now. They released the straight grain dial, the burlwood dials, but like 4 different types of burlwood dials. This is a dark burlwood dial from the early 80s. They had like an African mahogany dial. They had a walnut one. I think that's a really cool thing you can add to a watch. It's kind of like an interior of a car. To a lot of people, there's some people that are like, maybe it's not their favorite part of that piece, you know. Some people will say the movement's the most important thing. Some people will say it's the material, case material, like gold, platinum, car, the engine, the styling, whatever. But when it comes down to it, the dial of a watch and the interior of a car is pretty much gonna be the thing that you're staring at the most, right? You're staring at it for the longest, and as you own the thing over time and use it, that's pretty much what you're gonna be looking at. So it might as well be looking really cool, and you might as well really enjoy what you're looking at all the time. That's my perspective of it. I wanna talk about interesting dials, and I think this watch is a perfect way to kind of bring that up and segue into a lot of stuff. But I don't think they get enough love, to be honest. They are, in the collector's world, they are very sought after, and it's a collector's item. Why is this piece fun? It's not because the whole watch is made out of 18 karat favorite, yellow gold. It's a Rolex day date, which is for a lot of people, you know, the symbol of success. Either their first success or they're, you know, a veteran in the game and they want to treat themselves. It's hard to find things other than the Rolex day date that symbolize that type of success and is world renowned like the Rolex day date, because everybody knows it. Historically famous piece. In the collector's world, like stone dials and these rare dials get a lot of love. And now the wood dials, because they're so interesting and unique, and it takes it, I think, a step above some of these other like plain black dials. This was what I mean when I'm saying if you have a black dial, black dials are great. They're really cool. Every way you turn it, it's a black dial. That doesn't mean it's bad. Turn this baby all around, and you're gonna get a funky, fresh angle every time you turn it. Or even the olive green dial and stuff. Great looking watches. But when you're having a conversation with somebody or you're looking at people's wrists across the room, you might stumble on somebody who has a rare vintage, you know, material dial on their watch, and you go, oh, that's interesting, that's rare. Maybe you've never seen it before, and now this sparks a whole nother conversation and a whole new interest in the hobby. So this is where this watch comes in, the Rolex wooden dial. They made a variety of wood dials back in the day. They started in the 1970s, and some of the walnut dials were actually being used in the early 2000s, still kind of being in the rotation, but not like really, technically. It wasn't advertised. It wasn't like, oh, this is a thing. People just sent their watches back to the Rolex service center, and they were like, well, technically, can we do a dial swap on that? And then Rolex is like, oh man, well, the walnut dials, there's still a handful of these around. Let's put that on, you know, a 2000s watch. Okay, that's a little bit hard to track down and figure out the lifespan of this watch now. And then the straight grain wood dials, although they're very rare and very cool, they were cool and rare back in the day, and then as time has progressed, they've gotten more rare. Because why is that? There's only one way they could get more rare. The that's already out there is getting on. It was the most prone to cracking and getting beat up by life. But these new burlwood dials were much more sustainable and much more rugged. They could really, you know, withstand life. Like, don't be like, oh man, this is the burlwood dial? Boom! Just like thinking that you can just use this thing as a sledgehammer or something. You can't. The burlwood dial's indestructible. Boom! Don't do that. And the last one is birch. Probably some of the most different out of all of them just because it's extremely light. This one in particular is from the 80s. We actually have the original 80s box that comes with it as well for this client, which is super sick. It's almost a 45-year-old box. Would you believe that? That's crazy. This box is over twice my age. That's nuts. So you got this Rolex President, and we have the vintage leather Rolex box from the 80s. Don't tell me that's not gas. That looks pristine, baby. You undo it, and it's wood in the center here. Get some suede action going on here for the little stand piece for the watch. That's sick. Got Rolex in gold in the bottom right. Super hard. The box is honestly such a nice touch to this whole piece, and it really completes the vintage fun look. This is a dark burlwood dial. So this was early 80s. So this came a little bit later on in the story of wood dials. They made a variety of burlwood dials. They had an African mahogany, walnut, birch, with birch being the lightest. With some of the darker dials that they made, it was a little bit harder to tell which ones they specifically were. This is kind of like a mahogany color to it. It's kind of got a mahogany color to it, and it's the burlwood dial. I think it gives off that vintage heritage look. I think staring deep into this dial gives you that like old money. You kind of have to know what you're looking at. to buy it and be even interested in it. You're gonna be looking at the dial of a watch the most, kind of like you would be in an interior of a car. With the texture in a dial, the little details in it, like the little wood grain, the little blotches from the wood, from the like just the natural tones that it creates. You could just get kind of lost in it. You could stare at it multiple times, get so many different angles of it that you haven't seen before. You put it in different lighting situations and it changes. So it's like you're constantly looking at a new interesting thing every time that you put it on. It's so interesting to look at, and it's so fun to kind of just have on your wrist and kind of just play with. Look at that, vintage and more modern. That's funky. There's a lot of different types of Rolex boxes, so this isn't your only modern Rolex box that you're gonna be finding out there. I think the vintage one is quite a bit cooler, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So this is the modern outer box. This, I will not lie to you, kind of sucks, okay? And then this one is the vintage outer box. How sick. Rolex president right in the center spot as you're unboxing it. If you want a presentation like I'm gonna be giving the client tomorrow, look at this, it wraps all the way around. It's a beautiful box. This is a beautiful box. This, they tried. Hey, look at that, they tried. It's just got one logo on it. They really tried here. It's not bad quality. This is the epitome of brands nowadays being like, we'd have to just simplify everything for brand cohesiveness and all the other shit, right? We're like turning into Jaguar pretty much. Don't let that happen. This is a perfect example of like brand cohesiveness. Let's just slap the huge crown on it. And this is like, let's design a box that you get an experience with when you're unboxing it, right? Look at that. Look at that. The back and everything's you. Look at this. Come on. You could have your preference of the vintage leather Rolex box, right? The wood interior with the suede. You could have your preference of that, or the modern, you know, green box that Rolex does, just like suede-ish material, suede-y material on the inside there. So you can say that, hey, I like the modern stuff better. There's no way you're gonna like the modern outer box more than you like the vintage outer box. There's no way in hell. Treat the watches well, still be respectful of them, treat them, you know, it's still an expensive collector's item, treat it nicely, and you'll have it for your whole life. And then you can pass it down and someone else will be able to enjoy it for their life too. Really one of the few items that you can do that with, so treat that with respect and value it, because there's not very much that you can do like that. Having gone through stuff where I've received stuff like that from people, it's really a cool thing, and if you do treat them right, you can have them forever, which is so special, so cool. I guess I'll close this off saying this is a vibe and a half. I love the vintage look that it gives off. It really feels like it's kind of stuck in time, if you will. It's of a time and of an era where Rolex kind of pushing the boundaries and seeing what they could do. And it's also of a time that I don't remember because I wasn't alive. It gives off a look and appearance that I think is really special. I like that type of vibe and, you know, energy that it gives off. My question to you, because I'm gonna be doing another video on this, is just how do you like it? How do you like the wooden dial one? Would you choose this wooden dial one or a vintage, interesting dial, like rare natural dial Rolex over a modern one? Or would you take a modern example? I don't think there's a wrong answer there. I'm just interested to see what people's opinions are of things.